not only was a very talented legislator. Number one, he could craft legislation himself because he had the legal talent to do it. He had the leadership ability, the vision that very few of the others had, and then he was a good politician in the sense that he would corral votes. It was interesting when at first when Franklin Kury and I were first introduced. I was working in the Joint Legislative Conservation Committee, and at that time it was the real mover and shaker of conservation legislation in both the House and Senate. I remain optimistic that the courts will affirm the importance of the Environmental Rights Amendment, because the language is very clear as to what it means, and that's a great tribute to Franklin Kury and others who were involved in the drafting of that Environmental Rights Amendment.
You know, I knew about Franklin for a long time from conversations with Larry Schweiger and Cliff Jones, and then I became invited to his house on a number of occasions to talk about Hawk Mountain, and then I became a regular guest at social occasions at his house, and I got to talk to both him and Beth a lot one-on-one. One thing Franklin encouraged me to do, he told the story through Clean Politics, Clean Streams of the work in the process in getting a legislative initiative passed for the environment, and that was for the Environmental Rights Amendment. And his memory and his dedication to the detail of everything that happened reminded me it's important for all of us that work in this field to really take care of the history, really preserve that history. So this Conservation Heritage Project that many of us are involved in is a great way to do that. It really reminds us all that we're making history even today, and that even though the day-to-day work, the day-to-day battles perhaps for conservation and the environment may seem not as significant maybe as the things of the past, but they actually are. And I think in the long run, you gain ground on the environment, you gain ground in conservation by actually truly influencing and deeply influencing other decision makers. And Franklin's able to do that by weaving where they're coming from into perhaps where they need to go.
Franklin Kury's genius was to see that putting environmental rights in the Constitution was worth doing. Challenge that Article 1, Section 27 poses now is, how do you give life to that? How do you make sense of that in a way that still honors the fact that people are going to have to live in the environment? I think the Robinson Township case was decided, I believe, on December 19th, 2013. It occurred to me that Franklin needed to know about this. And I derive a certain amount of pride from being the one who first told him that after 40 years, Article 1, Section 27 was back. There's a T.S. Eliot poem, Little Gidding, the gist of which at one point is that at the end of all our wanderings, we wind up back where we started and know the place for the first time. And after 40 years, the legal community in Pennsylvania, as well as governmental and private decision makers, are knowing Article 1, Section 27, or seeing Article 1, Section 27 as if for the first time.
My first introduction to Franklin was through Article 1, Section 27. When I was a freshman at the University of Pittsburgh in 1971, and I vividly remember pulling the lever in the voting booth and voted for Article 1, Section 27. Never really knew who Franklin Kury was. And then about 40 years later, I got the job as a director of the Fish and Boat Commission. And then subsequent to that, I've been at a number of events with Franklin and his wife, and we were fortunate, and I was privileged to give Franklin the Rolf Abel Conservation Heritage Award. That's our highest recognition of any individual that does conservation work in our Commonwealth. Well, obviously, Franklin was the orchestrator of Article 1, Section 27, and I think for a lot of us that began our careers in the early 1970s, I think that was kind of like the linchpin in a lot of our careers, because what it did was it gave support to a lot of things that we were being taught in school at the time about conservation and ecology, and it gave us hope about coming out of school and having the potential to possibly impact a lot of the things that we grew up with. We had a panel discussion about whether we could do it today, and the reality of it is we probably couldn't do it today. We don't have the momentum, we don't have the desire, I don't think, to be able to do that today. We're too divisive right now, both with the politics and the policy, about where we want to go. And that article really was the roadmap for how we got from the 70s till today. We need a new roadmap, and the question is who's going to be able to take over where Franklin left off with that part of the Constitution.